3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, wanted to point out that Newark, New Jersey is the 9th most dangerous city in America, which means that they do, as Don asked on the break, have some illegal gun violence occurring. In their within their political borders.
They protect everybody.
And Newark isn't the worst part of New Jersey
No,
either. Isn't Camden the absolute pits?
Camden's pretty bad. I don't know where it falls on the. It was large cities, 200,000 or more. Maybe Camden's not big enough.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I would think it would be. It's pretty big.
Yeah,
but it's all the fault of all of those liberal gun law states like ours because they schlepped them in from there. It's always
right.
somebody else. With progressives, it's always somebody else's fault.
Right.
It's the fault.
Because simply having self-discipline and behaving yourselves and thinking that an armed society is a polite society is too much for their little minds to comprehend. So where I was going before the break was, look, we have sovereign states. The federal government has its certain playgrounds, which are basically military installations, post offices, and Washington, D.C., which they've made a pretty good hellhole of already.
Those are all well protected. Nothing happens there.
Are you kidding? Anywhere outside of the government buildings, you're subject to gang violence, robberies, and what have you.
Places like Fort Hood, they're peaceful, no problems.
But be that as it may, the federal government has its playgrounds. It has no right, no matter what legislation it passes, to impose federal gun-free zones on other locations in the sovereign states. And it is time for the sovereign states to stand up and say so.
The problem with that whole argument, while it is absolutely correct constitutionally and in theory and within the legal framework, the de facto part is that we have been turned by progressives into believing that other people are responsible for our safety, that we should necessarily follow a more Hobbesian view that the state is responsible for us rather than us for ourselves. We have seen the deterioration of that self-respecting, self-reliant, rugged individualism become not something to be emulated, but as a target for derision.
And to Don's point, and let me get to there, those people that are supposed to protect us are under no obligation to do so and can't be held to account. So
that's right.
With the getting in front of it idea, that is something that people don't know. They don't know enough about the fact that the police, according to the Supreme Court, have no obligation to defend you, and you cannot hold them responsible when they fail to do so.
And that's a particularly horrendous case of a multiple rape by armed folks actually, I don't even know if they are armed, just by thugs in D.C., the one place or almost the one place where it's the hardest to get guns in America. And that's the one where the Supreme Court actually ruled the police had no obligation to actually find out if your call for help was genuine if they got no response at the front door.
Correct. So people don't understand that. Well, that's not true, because every time there's a terrorist attack, millions of Americans go out and buy a gun or buy another gun. And so there are people in the world who are like not paying any attention to the noise and are going, you know what? It's obvious that nobody's going to protect me but me.
And it's also obvious that nobody's going to protect the children but yourselves or the teachers. The teachers should be armed. Done.
That's right. I think where we are is we've had 50 years of anti-gun propaganda. Good people don't have guns. Guns are bad. And look, when I grew up, we watched Gunsmoke. Daniel Boone and J.D. Crockett.
I love Gunsmoke.
Everybody had a gun. I mean, children were taught how to handle guns. We didn't have mass shootings. We didn't have stuff, enormous amounts of crime and stuff. So we have gotten all this propaganda for 50 years that these are bad, and people who like guns are bad, and people who have guns are terrible, and they cause all this stuff. And like so much else, I think law-abiding people or conservatives let this propaganda go on. We didn't fight it. Just like
Correct.
we didn't fight the welfare stuff, we didn't fight all this other stuff which was destroying our society. And we let it go because, those are the experts or whatever, and maybe they know. Well, they don't know, and we have to start trying to fight back with that idea. And I do think what you're talking about with your reaction to these mass shootings, where people are standing up saying, I realize now, someone has to stand up. Somebody has to be there. Somebody has to be in that room where the shooters come in to shoot 14 people, and one or two people starting to shoot back might have really cut the carnage.
Absolutely, for a couple of reasons. It's when you said the one or two, or maybe three.
Or five.
When the terrorist walks into the room, if one person pulls out a gun, he's going to turn that way, and it's going to be a tough call whether that one person does enough damage before they're killed. If two or three people pull out guns,
That's right.
he's going to hesitate because he's not going to know which way to turn long enough for them to get him.
Plus, the people who are there who aren't armed have an opportunity to tackle him while he's distracted by the gun owner.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a win-win-win situation. Absolutely. And
actually, all you have to do is stop them or hesitate. Somebody starts shooting at you, I suspect you're going to duck. Even
I would
if you're
think,
aggressor.
if I'm in a room and I've been disarmed for some reason and somebody comes and starts shooting, I'm throwing my chair at them.
Yes.
I'm turning my table over. I'm doing something. I'm not just going, shoot me. I mean, I don't know what happened. But your first action has to be stop the shooter, whether you're armed or not.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened down at that community college, and I can't pronounce the name,
Yeah.
where the vet,
The
Army vet,
attacked
did
him.
exactly that. Now, he got shot 7 times,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, the other people in the room,
Didn't.
again, being conditioned not to do anything, just froze and did nothing. Now,
Yes.
we weren't there. Would we do the same?
Who knows?
I don't. I'm quite sure I would try to do something.
I'd be like,
Remember when Ben?
yeah, where is it?
where's
Get
my
it out.
gun?
Remember when Ben Carson, in reaction to that, was asked about that? He said, "If you get innocent, you have to do something. And remember, you have to attack." And he was so criticized. Oh, you're criticizing those poor victims. Da, 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 da. But he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
You have to react. You
And
either
the
have
question
to-
to get in front of it is, why were they victims? And it's the college culture. It's the media culture.
That's
It's the
exactly
progressive
right.
culture that you're talking about.
That's right.
They taught them to roll over and die.
That's exactly.
And so we get back to the sovereign states should declare that there is no such thing as a federal gun-free zone except on federally owned property, at which point it's their choice to be victims.
But they're not going to do it. You know why?
Because they're on the hook because they've already got their what should we say? They're bribed and controlled because the places that have been made into federal gun-free zones are the ones the feds are helping to pay for. Like schools. And, we need a couple of states with the brass ones to actually stand up and say, because you're paying us so much less than you promised to pay us, because your programs are so damn much more expensive than the money you're providing, we're going to recast the programs according to our image and likeness. We're going to say no thanks to your money, and we're going to ignore all your rules and regulations.
It's important because I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but when I go on sometimes to post stuff, I'll see some things from people, and somebody posted something about how we need better presidential candidates, and I took the opportunity to write, if you spent more time locally on your governors, your county sheriffs, I said, that is where you need to start. You yourself probably cannot stop whatever is going to happen in D.C., but you can stop what happens in your own town and your own county. And you need a county sheriff who's going to defend the Constitution, and you need a governor who's going to back up that sheriff. And if you don't have those things, none of this other shit matters.
Yeah. Just like Grokster Susan, whose mantra in life is,
Screw DC,
save New Hampshire.
Let's say that loud and clear. Absolutely. Way to go, Susan.
And it's difficult.
And
you
Emily,
can't just,
Emily Sandblade, who's working with her.
Right. You need to organize people. You need to write letters to the editor, get in front of the people who don't follow programs like this.
Take the example of Don here, who writes more letters to the editor than any other single living being in New
but
Hampshire.
you guys write stuff
Yeah, but
multiple
they didn't
times
give you
every
your
day.
own, they didn't give you your own column yet.
Excuse me?
They didn't give you your own column yet.
If they give Craycraft that weekly column, they ought to be giving you one as well.
I wouldn't
Team
want
you up
one.
with Meade.
I wouldn't want one.
Oh, I would love to see you have one.
I wouldn't want one.
Why?
If I had to do it under pressure,
Under duress.
Yeah.
A whole week, you churn out 3, 4, 5 letters.
Actually, no, it is different though, because I've been
Yeah,
writing for Franklin for a while, and once you have an editor and they have their own, columns of thought and process and agenda and so on and so forth, and you write your thing and you send it to them, and then they do something to it, and they send it back to you or whatever, and it's just a different process. I can write on Granite Rock all day and just throw stuff out and write it the way I want, but they have certain things they require, and it changes the way you look at what you write. It really does. I would be like, I got to write a story this week. I need some extra cash, because they were paying me, and so I'd have to think about the pitch. I'd have to have it blocked out in my head already. I don't write that way normally. Normally, I know what I want to say, and then I say it, and then I arrange it, and then I post it. And it's completely different when you're writing for a publication. It really is different mentally. It's just weird.
Yeah. Well, I used to write letters to the editor years ago before I started Granite Rock, and I did have a semi-regular column in one of the local papers. And you're right, it is different. You have to really, your first pass is like 4 times larger than what they'll allow, and you have to say, what do I pull out and still keep what it is I'm trying to get across? And you do that very well. You really do.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
And I just love the way that you go, just like we do on the larger scale, but you get to point out who it is you're writing against from the other side of the aisle.
Well, sometimes.
The Moonbats.
Sometimes.
Well, you do. You tear them apart.
Yeah, you do it very well.
And more people need to do it. So we'll take our quick break now. We'll come back. We'll do the last 18 minutes or so of the show on this topic, I suspect, or who knows what else we'll talk about. This is, after all, Grok Talk.